Every Who down in Whoville liked Christmas a lot, but the Grinch, who lived just north of Whoville, did not. The Grinch hated Christmas the whole Christmas season. Now, please don't ask why. No one quite knows the reason. It could be his head was screwed on just right. It could be, perhaps, that his shoes were too tight. But I think the most likely reason of all may have been that his heart was 2 sizes too small. Whatever the reason, his heart or his shoes, he stood there on Christmas Eve hating the Whos, staring down from his cave with a sour, grinchy frown at the warm lighted windows below in their town. For he knew every Who in Whoville beneath was busy now hanging mistletoe wreath. And they're hanging their stockings, he snarled with a sneer. Tomorrow is Christmas. It's practically here. Then he growled with his Grinch fingers nervously drumming, I must find some way to stop Christmas from coming. For tomorrow he knew all the Who girls and boys would wake up bright and early. They'd rush for their toys. And then, oh the noise, noise. That's one thing he hated, the noise. Noise. Then the Whos, young and old, would sit down to a feast. And they'd feast, and they'd feast, and they'd feast. Feast. They would feast on Who pudding and rare Who roast beast, which is something the Grinch couldn't stand in the least. And then they'd do something he liked least of all. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, would stand together with Christmas bells ringing. They'd stand hand in hand, and the Whos would start singing. They'd sing, and they'd sing, and they'd sing. Sing. And the more the Grinch thought of this whole Christmas sing, the more the Grinch thought, I must stop this whole thing. Why, for 53 years I've put up with it now. I must stop this Christmas from coming. But how? And he got an idea, an awful idea. The Grinch got a wonderful, awful idea. I know just what to do. The Grinch laughed in his throat. He made a quick Santa Claus hat and coat. Chuckled and clucked with a great Grinchy trick. With this coat and this hat, I'll look just like Saint Nick. All I need is this reindeer. The Grinch looked around, but since reindeer are scarce, there were none to be found. Did it stop the old Grinch? No, the Grinch simply said, if I can't find a reindeer, I'll make one instead. So he called his dog Max, and he took some red thread and tied a big horn on top of his head. Then he loaded some bags and some old empty sacks. On a ramshackle sleigh he hitched up old Max. And the Grinch said, Giddy up! And the sleigh started down toward the homes where the Whos lay snooze in their town. All the windows were quiet snow filled the air. All the Whos were dreaming sweet dreams without care. When he came into the first little house on the square, this is stop number 1, the old Grinchy Claus hissed. Then he climbed to the roof, empty bags in his fist. Then he slid down the chimney, a rather tight pinch. But if Santa could do it, then so could the Grinch. He got stuck only once, for a moment or two. Then he stuck his head out and the fireplace flew, where the little Who stockings all hung in a row. These stockings, he grinned, are the first things to go. And he slithered and slunk with a smile most unpleasant. Around the whole room he took every present. Popguns and bicycles, roller skates, drums, checkerboard, tricycles, popcorn and plums. Then he stuffed them in bags, and the Grinch very nimbly stuffed all the bags, one by one, up the chimbley. Then he slunk to the icebox. He took the Who's feast. He took the Who pudding. He took the roast beast. He climbed out the icebox as quick as a flash. Why, that Grinch even took the last can of Who hash. And he stuffed all the food up the chimney with glee. And now, grinned the Grinch, I'll stuff up the tree. And the Grinch grabbed the tree and started to shove, when he heard a small sound like a coo of a dove. He turned around fast and saw a small Who, little Cindy Lou who was not more than 2. The Grinch had caught this tiny Who daughter who got out of bed for a cup of cold water. She stared at the Grinch and said, Santa Claus, why? Why you're taking a Christmas tree? Why? But you know, that old Grinch was so smart and so slick, he thought of a lie and thought it up quick. Why, my sweet little tot, the fake Santa Claus lied. There's light on this tree that won't light on one side. So I'm taking it home to my workshop, my dear. I'll fix it up there, then I'll bring it back here. And his fib fooled the child. He patted her head, he got her a drink and sent her to bed. And when Cindy Lou, who went to bed with her cup, he went to the chimney and stuffed the tree up. Then the last thing he took was a log for their fire. Then went up the chimney himself, that old liar. On their walls he left nothing but hooks and some wire. And the one speck of food he left in the house was a crumb that was even too small for a mouse. Then he did the same thing to the other Who's houses. leaving crumbs much too small for their Who's mouses. It was dawn, all the Who's still abed, all the Who's still snooze when he packed up his sled. Packed it up with their presents, their ribbons, their wrappings, the tags, the tinsel, the trimmings, the trappings. 3,000 feet up the side of Mount Crumpet, he rode with his load to the tip-top to dump it. Boo-hoo to the Who's, he was grinchiously humming. They're finding out now that no Christmas is coming. They're waking just up, I know just what they'll do. Their mouths will hang open a minute or two, then the Who's down in Whoville will all cry, boo-hoo. That's a noise, grinned the Grinch, that I simply must hear. So he paused, and the Grinch put his hand to his ear, and he did hear a sound rising over the snow. Started in low, and then started to grow. But the sound wasn't sad. Why, this sound sounded merry. It couldn't be so, but it was merry. Very. He stared down at Whoville. The Grinch popped his eyes, and he shook. What he saw was a shocking surprise. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, was singing without presents at all. He hadn't stopped Christmas from coming. It came. Somehow or another, it came just the same. And the Grinch, with his Grinch feet ice cold in the snow, stood puzzling and puzzling. How could it be so? It came without ribbons. It came without tags. It came without packages, boxes, or bags. And he puzzled 3 hours till his puzzler was sore. Then the Grinch thought of something he hadn't before. Maybe Christmas, he thought, didn't come from a store. Maybe Christmas, perhaps, means a little bit more. And what happened then? Well, in Whoville, they say, the Grinch's small heart grew 3 sizes that day. And the minute his heart didn't feel quite so tight, he was down with his load through the bright morning light, and he brought back the toys, the food for the feast, and he himself, the Grinch, carved the roast beast.
We did the red cabbage, then we did the elf pasta.
Oh, that's right, elf pasta. Okay, that's right. Welcome back, everybody, to our third Christmas meal video series. Today, what are we doing, kiddo?
We are eating the roast beast from the Grinch.
That's right, roast beast. What this actually is beef shoulder clod. We picked up from a great local butcher. Absolutely fantastic. They tied it. The butcher tied it for us to get a better even cook. That's why it didn't look like the traditional shoulder clod that you would normally get from the store. Like the edge piece normally just falls apart and becomes pulled beef for sandwiches and whatnot. It was folded back under and tied, so which made it out to be a lot better consistency throughout in terms of the slices for the beef. However, scratch that, because this was all very, very tender. Probably a little too much in terms of what I was actually going for. But that's okay. I mean, it still tastes. It tastes absolutely amazing. Don't get me wrong. It just was more fall apart tender than I was expecting. That's all. So in the movie, A Grinch. Wait, how many different movies are there that we've seen?
3.
So in the one I'm thinking of at the moment, the oldest one, who gets the first bite? Max. Do we have a dog that could get a first bite? The original, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I don't normally feed dogs at the table, but I think we can make an exception for roast beast. Yeah. So I thought this roast beast would be a great representation. Sorry, the shoulder clod would be a great representation of roast beast in the Grinch movie. I think it actually worked out really well. You could do brisket, of course, for it, but I think there was just a bigger quality to it that brisket doesn't do that the shoulder clod did. It was a lot of fun. One thing I think is it was a little dry. Make sure you inject it, as also mop it throughout the cook. I always say growing up in barbecue, if you need sauce, I didn't cook it properly. But there are some meats that just need sauce with them, and that's okay. So definitely have sauce with it when you're serving it, and make sure you mop during, before, and during the cook as well. So I think we should try this amazing beef shoulder clod, or how I like to call roast beast. So I think we're gonna give a dog a bite first, yeah. Then yeah.
Oh, you're cute.
I think just a little piece. Hold it there. Not get none of the rub on it. I think he likes it. I think that was in terms of taste test. I think he approves. And we'll never get him to not beg again in the future. We have a knife, but again, like I was saying before, it's so tender you don't need it. So this cook was 19 pounds. I put it on at 9:30 at night. I took it off at 5:30 p.m. the next day. This was a very long cook. This was the longest cook I've ever had in the Big Green Egg. While I didn't need to add more charcoal to it, I did actually, at one point, I should have got this in camera, but I didn't. I took it off, took the deflector plate off as well, and then I went and just pushed the, kind of smushed, brushed the ash down into the grate, into the bottom, and lumped the rest of the charcoal together to get it up to temperature to get this thing finished. And now we have a dog that's
sweet. That's
begging and being super sweet. But so you can see, I'm not sure whether I can see this or not, but this piece looks really dried out compared to this piece here, which is not as dried out. That's because the shoulder clod is about 4 different pieces of meat that come together on the shoulder. A glass of the Portuguese red blend tonight. It's absolutely amazing. Anything else you want to say, kiddo? Nope. So this is the 3rd video that we've done for Christmas series. So definitely want to make sure we wish you a very happy Christmas, into a great season. Hope you are doing well, and if not, hope that your season gets better. That was a big bite. Good job. So now you can't say the outro. Darn. I could just keep talking forever, and then eventually you'll finish that bite, and then you can say it. How's that sound? I'll give you some to drink, but not the wine. For the rub on this, I used salt and pepper, which was straight 50-50, half cup salt and pepper. Definitely didn't use all of it. I have just a separate old container that I used just to apply it, and we used Cosmo's cow cover, which is a lot of salt, pepper, and garlic as well on top, with some paprika for good coloring. Color was absolutely amazing on this thing. This thing just looked absolutely massive. After right now, we have a huge pile of beef on the cutting board.
It's like,
yeah, it was just piled high. Just absolutely incredible. Definitely roast beef material. So this is so good. Such a good flavor. We use post oak as we normally do, especially with beef. You can't beat that. It was exhausting, but definitely worth it. Any questions about this amazing beef shoulder clod, let me know. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, please let us know as well. Again, this is the 3rd video in the Christmas series. I want to make sure you are enjoying a great Christmas season. I want to say Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And as always,
keep barbecuing America.
Cheers. I'm not sure. I didn't know if you still had food in your mouth or not. Oh, cheers.
Nothing left in there.
What was in there? Eggnog?
Yeah.
Oh, eggnog. So good. Good job, kiddo.